Love is our true divine nature, and our heart serves as the intersection of the spiritual and physical, connecting our soul with our body as the conduit for anchoring our divinity onto the earth plane. Embodying our divinity is the key to our ascension and to manifesting our highest destiny in this life. The teachings of the heart are alchemy. Join spiritual mentor and channel Jennifer Spohr each week on a sacred journey to lift the veil to remembering your divinity and meet other beautiful souls who are living the path of the awakened heart. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited to welcome as a guest today Dr. Sharnael. She is a captivating multidisciplinary expert who seamlessly blends naturopathic medicine, spirituality, and quantum science to empower individuals on their journey to wholeness. As the founder of True TV and author of 5 groundbreaking books, including The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love, Dr. Sharnael offers a unique perspective on achieving optimal health and unlocking human potential. Her global influence spans over 51 countries, where she shares her transformative insights through speaking engagements, online classes, and social media platforms. And she also has over 15,000 clients online remote with her technology with long distance biofeedback. Welcome. Such an absolute pleasure to connect with you and have you here.
So much for having me. It's going to be a fun time.
Yes, it is. I'm excited and I love that your cat Blue is with us for the conversation as well.
Yes.
I'd love for you to share with us. Before we hit record, I was just talking about how multifaceted your work is, and it's really fascinating. I'd love for you to share more with us about what led you to this path.
Yes, that would be awesome. You have to excuse me. I'm coming back from having a little bit of a cold and my throat is still a little bit but thank you. Yes, I my background is actually in ministry. I did ministry conference speaking for 17 years. And I am very much was very attracted to like the paranormal, the miracles, the healings, the bilocation, finding things that are lost, making them appear, like that kind of cool stuff, angelic activity, maybe even ETs, like just anything outside the box. And so I don't really see myself as very religious necessarily, but more on a spiritual path. But I did that for 17 years and I still do conference speaking. But I ended up probably that last 6, 7 years of teaching was pretty ill and kind of looking for answers through the MD, Western route, not really finding a whole lot of answers. My dad was military, so we traveled a lot and I kind of just grew up with that mentality of like, you go to the doctor every year, you do all the stuff, that's just normal. You listen to what your doctor says, your doctor knows everything, and so went through those hoops for that 7 years and wasn't really getting anywhere. Had a small suitcase of pharmaceuticals that I was taking that really gave me a lot of kind of mental gymnastics on like what to take here and what not to take here. And this is with water and that's with food. And these can't go together and these got to go together. This is at night. This is in the morning, blah, blah, blah. But I was teaching a dreams and vision course. And when the lady who was hosting the conference was there and she saw my, activity over the few days there of like popping pills constantly and getting out my little suitcase and lining up all my pills in my pill box and stuff. She was just like, you got to go see this guy. And I had kind of given up at that point because I wasn't really feeling better, even with all the pharmaceuticals. And it was a full-time job to be sick. If I could have, I would have stayed in bed all the time. But with 3 kids and, being a single mom, that wasn't really a choice. So I just pushed through, put on my smiley face. Oftentimes I felt really fake about it, to be honest. Um, it's one thing if you're sick for the weekend, like I just had like a 3-day thing I'm coming out of right now, and friends were here in town and they're like, "Hey, you want to go do something?" And I was like, "No." And I'm having a little clearing time right now, and I'm just gonna stay and drink some soup and stuff. But and it's 7 years and people are asking you to go do things and you're still telling them that you're not feeling well, it gets to be embarrassing, honestly. And it's almost like you feel like the a hypochondriac, in the room. And like maybe people think you're using that as like some sort of crutch or something to get, attention. Or like I was legit not well. Like I was just not feeling well. I constantly had a fever. Um, it was hard to lose weight because I didn't feel well to go do anything. I didn't have energy to do anything. So it was kind of stacking on things, and it was getting to be like a mental, emotional issue because uh I was just so disappointed in myself and disappointed in the way I felt, disappointed that I felt like I was missing out on life. It cost a lot of money because I was missing work at times. Cost a lot of money because I was in doctor visits all the time. And, it really sucks is like just to get a refill, through all the insurance stuff. It's like, oh, you got to come in, it's like, you can't just do that over the phone. No, you got to come in. And, when you're on 33 meds, there's a lot of refills. And so I was constantly just in for a refill, which would mean I'm missing work again, which means, or missing life again, and then half the time I would sit in the waiting room, everyone around me like strep and coughing and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I would leave with something else. And so it wasn't something I was really excited about, but I did go see this guy, Dr. Lucky is his name, and I think that's kind of funny. And he introduced me to this whole world of something I had never been introduced to up until that point. And he is a legit, like, Western doctor, but he has all these funny, crazy, awesome machines and kind of biohacking stuff. And he's got a very interesting system on how he looks at the patient. He goes at the root, but he does muscle testing and a lot of other things. And, I don't really know anyone on the planet who does it the way he does. And he was able to identify some things that were going on with me. I was very much into that spiritual pocket, like I talked about, neuroscience, quantum physics, miracles. And so he started talking about frequency. And like that resonated with me. I got that. And I'm like, never heard a doctor talk about frequency. So I was listening. He had my attention and he started talking about essential oils, and he doesn't even like sell them or anything. And he was talking about how some are bad and some are good and some are, say that they're organic and blah blah blah, but they're really not. And some of them have fillers and some of them have chemicals, and anyway, he introduced me to a certain brand that we had tested as really good, high quality frequency. I did not know an oil could have a frequency. He started explaining to me about how if you use the proper oils, it'll work with your limbic system to clear trauma through the body and different assignments that you may have for like symptoms in the body or signals in the body. And he ran a test on me that showed I had 28 traumas locked in my body. And there are different reasons why traumas will lock. And he went into that and explained that. And basically, I did what he said. And in 16 weeks of doing what I was doing, working with him, and using these oils, um, I was able to get off all 33 meds. I dropped 80 pounds without changing my diet at all, like whatsoever. And I'm embarrassed to say that my main food group was like Coca-Cola and Rice Krispie bars and Doritos at the time, because when I would travel and be on 6 planes a week, especially, back then, there weren't a lot of choices at airports, and or when we were going from conference to hotel to wherever, I would rely on the people who were hosting me to drive me back and forth and take me out. They were in charge of my food, and so they might take me through a drive-through or whatever, and it was just like, what are you gonna do? So things have changed quite a bit now, and I think people are more aware of what drive-throughs do and, the quality of food and that
What's
kind of
in
stuff.
it?
And
Yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot more options at airports and gas stations, a little bit more, but anyway, that kind of led me down a road and opened me up to looking at the naturopathic stuff just because he kind of operates that way. And again, that was when I was first introduced to the word. I didn't even know what a naturopathic doctor was.
Mhm.
Started meeting a couple other naturopaths who were also MDs. They had dual medical degrees, which was quite interesting. I was on a plane going to my next place or whatever, and it just popped in me to like go back to school and learn all this stuff. And I'd had a couple reoccurring dreams about it. And at one point I was like, okay, God, do you really want me to go back to school? Because again, I was a single mom. I was 37 at the time. Seemed like a really weird time to just go back to school and jump in a 4-year degree, after I'd already had my undergraduate and my master's. And it was just like, really, I'm going to go do this again. I kind of thought I would always get my doctorate, but I didn't think it was going to be in that. I thought it was going to be more spiritual, along the lines of divinity or something like that. And literally, I'm on the plane. I look out the window. I just asked the question, and there is this like yellow cone thing on the tarmac, and it says ND, and it's pointing in the direction I'm going. And I was like, okay, I hear you. So I did go back to school, and I honestly was just going for the sake of being able to learn for myself. And because I'm kind of like a student, like a professional student in some ways. I love
Huh.
learning. You seem
Me
like you
too.
are
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, I
Um,
totally get that.
like, what certification are you working on now? It's like always like a thing, right? But also because I would do these conferences, there would be so many sick people and like prayer lines, and then they would share their stories. And when I got better, a lot of these places I was coming back year after year, and they did not even recognize me, Jennifer. They'd be like, take a couple minutes. Oh my God, that's you. One time I was in Holland and I got out of my taxi and I had my suitcase. I walk up, told the people at the desk, like I'm here, and they're like, okay, just register. And I'm like, no, it's me. I'm the speaker. I've known you for 5 years, and they're just like, oh my God, and this happened over and over to the point where they were saying, hey, can you teach on this? And I did not feel equipped to do so. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn this so I can help people. And I did open up a practice in May of 2016, or maybe it was June 2016. Well, I went out of town. I went back home for a month in Montana, which is where I'm from originally. And when we came back, they had this huge flood and we got 12 feet of water in the wellness center. And so I was like, okay, so much for having a practice. I guess I'm going back online. Because when I would come back from these conferences after teaching to 20,000 people or 10,000 people or whatever in a conference, my answer machine would be full when I came back. My emails would be full, and people would be like, hey, what do I do about this? And can you help my daughter? And, you mentioned this and this, can you help? And so I was doing a lot of like phone consultations back then. That was before Zoom. And then eventually there was like Zoom stuff. And then when the last 4 years have happened with all the C stuff and that situation, it's a lot more, I guess, popular or mainstream to do Zoom, telecalls through a doctor now. And it's even more, it's even grown, bigger. So that's what I'm doing. I did finally again open another practice this last July, and I have all of those fun biohacking equipments that that my doctor had, and maybe even more. And not like it's a contest, but anytime something cool comes out, I'm just like, oh, I gotta get that. And so we have things like ozone therapy and red light therapy and hyperbaric chamber and biofeedback and PEMF and foot detoxes. And yeah, I've worked with wellness centers all over. Matter of fact, this morning was just talking to a wellness center in Montana, and I worked with them several times. And we're going to be doing something here this year. I've worked in wellness centers over in Europe. So, that's kind of how I got here in this space, and this is what I'm doing. And I just love mixing like the whole part too. And not just the emotions, not just the physical, but there's a spiritual part to that too, of just, connecting with God and remembering your purpose and doing your thing, and this is what you're doing too. So we keep finding each other. All these people are kind of, I'm seeing more collaborations and
Yeah.
like a cross-pollination of people like us doing what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So fascinating. Yes, I love to learn too. One thing I would love to have you share more about that you mentioned is the trauma testing because as a channel, so when I'm working with someone, I can actually see and feel the locations in someone's body, like where they're holding that. I'd love for you to share more about the testing that you talked about and how that works.
Yeah, so with biofeedback, we do what they call evox, which is through your voice, and we can calculate like anything that's missing and then customize frequencies to go send back to the person.
Mhm.
Um, but we also take a picture of the biofield and we can kind of see what's going on there. We get up to 30 reports that show. But when he tested me, he was using a mixture of that and muscle testing. And what I have found in my research is like this is your frontal lobe, and behind that is your limbic system. And the limbic system is the part of the brain that is kind of the library of the emotions. And as we are experiencing life, we're presented with a lot of different ups and downs. And we filter a lot of just information constantly. We're bombarded with stimuli, whether we're aware of it or not. Like even right now, our heart is beating, our body's
Mhm.
recognizing temperature. You go to the grocery store, what the temperature, you may not be sitting there going, it's cold or it's hot, but that's in the equation. There may be music playing. There could be a lady who's checking you out and she has on a red shirt. Everything's being recorded. Your body records everything all the time, 24/7. So from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., this is what they call the defrag time, where you sort of dump all the things that aren't super necessary for you to like be alive. You don't really need to remember the grocery store lady's color shirt or
Right.
what song was playing, or maybe if her shoes were untied, or like, similar like that just kind of goes. But number one, if you're not sleeping from 3 to 5, you won't dump that. And if there is a little more stick to the information, sometimes it will not defrag either. And what the limbic system will do is take it and point it into that body part, which you're seeing. Um, the reason why, different reasons why it will stick is number one, it could be like an authoritative figure did something to that person that was maybe not so fun. Um, and it has a little more stick. Number two, it could be something that's repetitive as far as trauma goes, where you're seeing like a pattern of multiple hits with a different person, not like physical hits, or though it could be actually, but um, different traumas with a specific situation or a person. When it happens over and over, that limbic system is like, oh, this again. Okay, you know what? We're gonna have to shelf this because she's really not going to be able to defrag this right now. We're going to have to deal with this later, and kind of put it off to the side. Another thing could be like if it's an authority figure, like a coach or a pastor or a parent or someone that you really look up to, a teacher, and they do something traumatic. That tends to stick a little bit more for some reason. I guess because our heart is involved and it's just like you don't expect, because you should be able to trust someone in authority, right? And so the limbic system will go, hey, this has got a little more stick. We're just going to put this in the body until she's ready. And then also it could be something that you're just completely not expecting, like something sudden, like a car accident or like the fires in California or
Mhm.
something like that's going on where you're just like, whoa, where did that come from? And it's such a shock that you actually need time to process, or like a death or something, and those things can all be in combination too. So it could be like the death of a family member and some authority figure. It could be a sudden trauma from an authority figure
Mhm.
that came against you. It could be a repeated offense from authority figure that has happened over and over again. So there's that, and those have even more stick, right? So what happens is when that limbic system decides this is not a good time to defrag, it's too much, you're too stressed, what it'll do is it'll put it in that body part. It'll let it stay there. Sometimes it'll be a minute. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. Sometimes it's 4 years. Sometimes it's 4 decades. And what will happen is if you run into something even kind of remotely similar
Yeah.
to that feeling again, that trigger, it sends a little trigger and it can cause signals in that body part. So let's say it's a knee, maybe the knee will start to get inflamed, or maybe your insulin chops up, or you start getting migraine headaches, or a thyroid issue, or just depending on where it is, you'll get those signals or symptoms. And what do we do when we go to the Western doctor? They want to give you a pill to like turn it off and not feel it anymore and, mask it.
Right.
Um,
That doesn't
they're not,
heal it.
yeah, they're not going
No.
through, to see like, oh, that was your second grade teacher that molested
Well,
you or what.
and long term, that solution actually worsens the
Yes.
situation,
Yes,
right?
because what
Because
will
you're storing
happen?
that in your body.
Yes. And what happens is if you mask it, um, or ignore it, it just will get bigger and bigger. And it's kind of similar like if you had your car and you needed an oil change and you're like, oh, this blinkety blink light keeps, annoying me and it makes this sound every time I get in the car. And I'm like, oh, stop it. And I bring it to a mechanic and the mechanic's like, you know what? I can help you. I'm gonna just unplug that light, we're going to take away that sound and you're just going to be good to go. And you give them their little money and you drive away. And what, 3, 4 weeks later, the car blows up, right? So that's kind of what happens is the message will get
Yeah.
louder and louder and louder and bigger and bigger and bigger until you're almost forced to have to do something. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's too late, where people could be really, really sick and not really know how bad it is because they've just blocked it out or taken meds to turn it off, and
Yep.
it could maybe spread or get so big that now you need a surgery or something really monumental. So but yeah, if when you're using a high frequency essential oil, like this one. This is sandalwood, actually. And you could actually take it, put it in your hands, cup it, and it'll go past the olfactory system, past that frontal lobe, goes into the limbic system, and it starts like letting go of all those assignments within the body. And
Hmm.
literally, Jennifer, all I did for 16 weeks is put oils on my body, smell them, and within 16 weeks, I went from a 28 to a 4 as far as traumas in my body. And again, off all the meds without any side effects, without any like freak out, and literally dropped weight because people tend to hold weight when they hold trauma. So it's a protection mechanism, just like a cat will get really, really big if it's scared, because it wants to look really big so no one will get them,
Right. Yeah.
people do that too, whether it's subconscious or conscious. Like I know a lot of people that I work with that literally won't eat and they can't lose weight. And we start working with the emotions through biofeedback and clearing and clearing and clearing. And they're dropping pounds like crazy because it's just like, well, that trauma's gone. They don't need to hold that anymore. They can let go of everything.
Hmm. So fascinating. Everything that you're sharing, and you're talking about, the trauma and how the system is like setting things aside and like everything that's going on. Does that apply to uh, trauma related experiences from other incarnations as well, because you know how we're multidimensional beings, right? And so even beyond all of the ancestral stuff that we can be holding on to, we can be holding on to energies from other experiences too. So does that apply to that as well?
It can. The biofeedback will not pick up, hey, this is your second life or your fourth life. But when the numbers are really, really low, so there's high numbers that are in red, which indicate this is something on the front lines that is really currently happening to you. And
Mm-hmm.
if there are lower numbers in the blue, that does indicate if it's an epigenetic type thing or an ancestral thing, meaning you've been carrying this a long time and or you incarnated with it already because of your genetics, which still can be cleared because epigenetics is actually real and we can't clear that. And we can do it long distance, which is bizarre to even think, but
It's pretty cool.
it is. It is.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really cool. The essential oils, like the bottle that you had, was that your brand or was that
I
would
have
you
a brand on
recommend?
my website that I work with the best. I've been with this company 13 years now. Well, since 2008. So what year? I don't even know what day it is, what year it is, but a long time.
2025.
Yeah. And I have been all over the world with the owner of the company who's now passed. But we did research with cancer and different things. We've been to Oman, we've been to Singapore, we've been to Ecuador, Dominican Republic, we've been to France multiple times, um, Turkey, Croatia, yeah, Japan. Like, I'm constantly researching and we go through the distillation process, the harvest, the seeding. Like, I'm kind of a geek about all this. So, when I look at other companies, I'm going to look like, well, how are you doing it? Because it really matters when something's planted, when it's distilled, how long, the harvest is, how long, when there's such a tiny window of harvest. And most companies will not have a lab right on the farm. They have to send it off. So if you're getting ready to like think you need to distill or harvest to distill, most companies will just send it off. It'll take 2 weeks. They come back and it's like, oh, you should have done it a week and a half ago. But when you have it and you spend the money and invest to have a lab right on the farm, you can run over and go, hey, 2 more hours. Okay, cool. We'll start in 2 hours. Oh, hey, tomorrow at sunset. Okay, we'll do it tomorrow. And you're not missing that window of having the highest sesquiterpenes or phenols or monoterpenes,
Mhm.
which there's a PMS system, phenols, monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes. Phenols will clear off the cells. So if there's any kind of gunk or weird stuff, that helps to clean them off. The monoterpenes deprogram so if there's any kind of genetic stuff going on, it can actually go right into the cellular form, the mitochondria, fix stuff. And then the sesquiterpenes reprogram, which they reprogram back to your signature blueprint, which is your whole divine, self of where you should be. And yeah, I mean, it's mind-boggling. It is so beautiful how plants work with us and how alive they are, and they have their own intelligence and just how they work with the body, is pretty cool.
Well, we're all interconnected, right? Part of the earth and yeah, it's really cool. I could talk to you about this stuff for days. It's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Uh, for some, what are some indicators that you could share that could let someone know that the type of work that you do, the service that you offer, could be a solution for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I tend to get a lot of people who don't know what's wrong. They just know they don't feel good and no one has given them answers.
Mhm,
Um, a lot of autoimmune, a lot of people who are dealing with the C word. I don't like to even say that word.
mhm,
And I'm not talking about the C word that's the last 4 years. I'm talking about, the cellular C word.
Yeah.
And I kind of specialize in those areas, but with the reports that we get with biofeedback, I can see if there's Lyme, if there's fungus or mold, if there is electronics that are causing issues in the body, with 5G or Wi-Fi or cell phone or, wires in the house. We can look at, skeletal issues. We can look at EEGs, sleep patterns. We could look at psychic attack. Like if sometimes there's
Yeah.
just like chants or invocations or maybe some cords that need to be cut, or some kind of connections that aren't serving them. Like that'll show up in the report. It shows if there's vitamin deficiency, hormone imbalance, brain chemistry imbalance, um, emotions, like we talked about. It'll show like what's going on with that. There's so many things. Like I said, there's 30 pages of, sensitivities and higher stresses. And once we can pinpoint what's really going on, the software will create customized frequencies to that person, send them to them, and start getting the ball rolling. But what I like to do is also go on a consultation with them and say, hey, you know what? It's actually showing you need more grounding. So get outside and get your feet in the grass, or maybe take a vitamin A because it's showing you're deficient in vitamin A,
Yeah.
or get to bed before 3 o'clock in the morning. How about that? Because your delta cycle is off on your sleep pattern and you're not
Yeah.
really releasing HGH to heal your body and you're not
Sleep
doing,
is a big one.
yeah. So it'll tell me what's going on. But what I like is it's not just diagnostic, because you can go get an MRI or you can go do these things and that'll give you, tell you what's going on, or you could do blood work and tell you what's going on, but it's not going to start fixing it for you. And so I like to do both where we're working towards the same goal here. And I was a little skeptical that it could even happen long distance, but this same doctor that I was telling you about, he got it and he was like, let me try it on you. And I was like, okay, sure, just whatever. I like to be his guinea pig. And he said, I'll do it, whatever. 3 weeks later, I forgot about it. And so I was like, hey, did you do that thing? I was just seeing what it said. He's like, oh gosh, I forgot. I'll get to it. I'm so sorry. I've been busy. I wasn't expecting anything. One day I come home and sitting on the couch, I start feeling super tired. And I was like, I'm kind of feeling tired and knocked out. And I was like, oh my gosh, dogs going in and out, cats going in and out, kids coming in home from school, like sleeping during the day, sitting on the couch, sitting up. I've seen my husband do this. I have never slept sitting up. Like I just don't sleep. I don't take naps during the day. Just doesn't happen. Woke up several hours later in the middle
Mhm.
of the night, grabbed my phone. I'm like, oh my God, did you do the thing? And he had just texted at 11:55 and said, hey, I'm about to do it. I was like, whoa. So that happened. Several other things started coming up in the next few days that gave me even more understanding. Like my
Yeah.
Jeep satellite went out and I called and they were like, oh, just pull over, turn it off. We're going to beam this thing. He was in India, Jennifer. And like he like
Yeah.
sends me this signal and then like all of a sudden my satellite's back on. My direct TV went out the next day. Same thing. I call with some dude in wherever, somewhere USA, but he sends a signal. I think it was Utah. And he's like, oh, let me just do this and we'll beam it up. And I was like, that makes sense. So that's what he was doing to me and somehow we can do this. So it can be used for the positive. I'm pretty sure they're doing this in the negative as well, if the technology is there, which it is. But we like to use it for the positive. I worked on my co-host. I have a podcast. He's in the UK. He had a shoulder issue, and I was working on him, and we're sending him, customized frequencies for that. And I had a patient come in, and she needed it, like emergency stuff. So I got him off, got her on. Immediately, he's sending me a WhatsApp, and he's like, "Did you just turn it off?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh," And even 2 days ago, I was working on someone in New Orleans, and she said, did you happen to do that thing yesterday? Because at about 2 o'clock, I got super tired. By 3, I had to go home and take a nap. I said, yes. And I showed her the report and said 3 o'clock is when we started it. And she's just like, this is crazy. I need to get this. And I'm like, I know, it's pretty cool. So it can be done. Some people feel it. Some people actually feel nothing. Some people have total energy about it. Some people get dreams. Some people get new like friends, or like a spouse will come in their life suddenly.
Because of frequency shifts. Yeah. Yeah.
Abundance, people get money.
Yeah.
Like like checks come in the mail or stuff that people owed them from like years. All of a sudden they're like, oh, here we owed you this from wherever, and here's $40,000. And
Hmm.
they'll call me and I'm like, how's everything going? Just checking. They're like, oh my God, I got engaged. I wrote a book. I lost 12 pounds. It's like the testimonies are insane what happens when you clear that stuff.
Yeah. So cool. So cool. This is very exciting. I know there are going to be folks that want to reach out and connect with you, and we're going to have all of the goodies, all of the links to learn more about you and work with you in the show notes. I would love for you to share with us. I mean, is there anything that you have coming up that you want to share?
Sure, absolutely. I actually am teaching a online course
Hmm.
live on the 19th about creating and designing your Quantum Leap 2025. That, I could send you the link, or if you want to go to my website, I think the information is on there. And then also I'm going to be at Conscious Life Expo in LA in February, the first week of February, which I'm hoping they're still going to do this because of all the fires and everything.
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting thing. But I have a podcast every Thursday at noon. If anyone wants to join me, we like to talk about fun things like Bigfoot and UFO and paranormal and spiritual things and the stars and
All
yeah,
the
hell
cool things. Yeah.
yes.
What's the name of your show?
Dr. Sharnael True TV. And my website is drsharnael.com. And I have my books on there. I have 5 books that I've written. All my online courses are there as well. I'm on all the social media platforms, like Instagram and Rumble and Facebook and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Cool. Great. I know folks are definitely going to want to reach out to connect with you. And just in closing, is there anything else that you're feeling guided to bring forward?
Yeah, I think this is a year of people doing them with sovereignty.
Mhm.
Us just really getting in our body, really not taking things personal, really just seeing things as they are without any attachments and without feeling like well, they just don't like me, or blah blah blah, or all those kind of weird things that we get hung up
Mhm.
with ego. For me anyway, it's kind of a year of like acceptance, surrender, and like just sovereignty, letting people do their thing and just being like, hey, that's cool. You do your thing.
Yeah,
But I encourage you guys to kind of roll with that, and like, because there's a lot of weird stuff going on right now, honestly. And it's easy to take it personal. It's easy to be upset and hurt and get bad feelings. Or we can look at it as this is just life and people are doing their thing, and you know, just love them from afar and do your thing.
absolutely. That's really what it is. I mean, understanding that you in yourself have all of these experiences, well, other people are having those experiences too. And a lot of someone's behavior or what they're projecting into the world is a product of that. So
Yes,
when you really start to understand that, right, and as a result develop a deeper level of compassion for that, I mean, even just that alone, I can imagine if everybody cultivated that, like how different would our world be?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I appreciate people like you that are taking time out of your life to do a podcast like this, to bring positivity, to bring understanding, to bring different modalities and teachings and things, because so much of what we see on television is a program, television, broadcasting, people like you and I and lots of others that have kind of just like gone, you know what, we're going to create some alternatives for people to be encouraged and have hope and have good news. and to see kind things and to see the beauty of the world instead of all this focus on dark, 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 darkness, you know. So I appreciate you and what you're doing in your world.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you too. I'm so just thrilled about your work and that you were a guest today and just all of the wisdom and gifts that you've shared. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Path of the Awakened Heart. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or pathoftheawakenedheart.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about living with an awakened heart and navigating your ascension journey, visit me at jenniferspore.com.